In this video, I'll demonstrate the use of the KeyListener interface and show how we can use this interface to capture keystrokes from the user in a swing application, Java swing application. So let's run the program first and I'll take a look at the details of the code. So here's a driver, key event driver. So if I run this program here, I get a little JFrame, and if I press letters, I'm going to press A here on the keyboard, or B or C, you can see that I'm not only printing out the keys I'm pressing, but I'm changing the J-frame size. And this is pretty simple, but you could change the text in the J-frame or have some movement of an object in the J-frame for an animation or something like that, like in a game. But bottom line, I'm capturing keys and changing the GUI object. Okay, so let's see how this works. If I close this up, the driver is pretty straightforward. I just have a main. I create a key event tutorial object and I tell it to go. And in GUI applications, it's pretty typical. I have a very short main. I create the object and I tell it to run or to go, and it takes over and does the work. So let's close that up. And I'll take a look at the key event tutorial class. This is where everything's done. So if I open that up here, all right. In this class, I have a JFrame instance variable. I have a constructor here that sets up the JFrame, its size, its visibility, and whatnot. And then I have a go method. And in the go method, you'll see something interesting. I'm actually defining a class key action event, different than key event tutorial. Key action event implements key listener. I'm defining this class inside of a class, which is interesting. So this is called an inner class. And the bottom line, why this is done, is so that this class has access to this variable, this frame, which is what you saw when I press keystrokes. Because this processes keystrokes, I can have access to the frame and then change its size or do more complex things like add text or move things around like an animation, but I have access to it. You could argue that this class should be in a separate file, in its own separate class, and that I should have getters and setters for frame. What you could do, it just makes things complicated in terms of security, because then when you have getters and setters for frame, then other classes can possibly change them. So in GUI applications, you typically create an inner class. So this key action event implements a key listener, and if you want to think about the key action event, it is simply a person who watches the keyboard and tells somebody when certain keys are pressed. In this case, we tell the frame that a certain key was pressed, and the frame will do something based on it. So what the constructor is adding itself. Think of this as itself, adding itself to the list of people that need to be notified if a certain key is pressed. So that's what the constructor does. Then I have a series of methods here. Key released, I have key pressed method, and this is the one that I used here. And then I have a key typed method that are run when certain things happen. The one that I used was key pressed, and if you take a look here, I'm saying if the key code is VKA, which is virtual key A for A, then I print out that I pressed it and I change the frame size. If I hit B, I capture that key and tell the frame to do something, or C. So this is basically how I look for keys. And you can add as many other keys you like here. If at the bottom here, I think there's a statement that says, if you Google key event or Java key event, you see all the different codes for all the different keys, and it's basically changing this little text right there. VKB, VKC, VKD, virtual key, backspaces, function keys, left arrow, right arrow, enter keys, and whatnot. So all those can be Googled. So in a nutshell, that's basically what happens. I create an inner class that looks for keys. I tell the key action event to tell the frame when these occur, and if they occur, which could be at any time, whenever they do happen, in this case, I print out something and I tell the frame to set its size. So that's how it's done. If you want a copy of this code, you can go to my website, thecubscientist.com, APCS index, APCS HW for homework. And when you get there, it'll look like this. If you go down to right here, Java 2D graphics, if you click that, you'll see all the different tutorials that you just saw here, along with a link to download the code. So that's an example of how to use the KeyListener interface in your programs.